Hello, lovely loves. Thank you for joining me again today. So, actually, this video is going to be the first time in my series more of speculative aspects of our reality. And this one's going to be on the Mandela Effect and timelines. So, just to outline really quickly what the Mandela Effect is, it's actually was named by a paranormal enthusiast, Fiona Broome, when she discovered that Nelson Mandela actually did not die in prison in the 1980s, and she found out that a lot of people also believed that he died in prison in the 1980s. So first of all, we are not our bodies. So we completely exist outside of this time-space reality. So we don't actually exist only in this time-space reality. We're focused on this time-space reality. So we're focused totally on 3D. Our conscious awareness, at least, is only showing us the focus on 3D. But all that we're seeing in this reality is actually just an out picture of collective agreements that we've had. So, first of all timelines exist. But our body minds are being guided by our higher selves, both consciously and unconsciously, to focus exclusively on the timeline that is for our greatest good. So it's a timeline that's going to give us the most love and light that we will currently allow. So our vibrations, though, and so our vibrations currently, and so therefore the timelines as well, because they're based on our vibrations, are speeding up, and they're in a speeding up kind of phase for multiple reasons. So the mostly exclusively part of like what we're focused on is the ripple that creates the Mandela effect. So we're mostly always focused on this timeline, but there's a little bit of an overlap there. That's the Mandela effect. The timeline that we're guided on, obviously. So our minds and thoughts work by outpicturing images more so than images of words. So this is why the spellings may change, but the images of the spellings will show up as changed. But then when we see them in a blog, or we see the spelling, without an image, it stays from a different timeline. This is because we have agreed to have the images change by agreeing to a different timeline and expanding our vibration. But if our mind is noticing, consciously, both the spellings and the images, we may notice some subtle differences between the agreement for the timeline we're on versus the agreement that we had before. This simply means that we have allowed an aspects of our unconscious agreements by our higher self into our conscious awareness. So there's parts of the unconscious agreement that we made that are showing up in our conscious reality by, a misspelling or maybe an image that's slightly changed. So our entire reality that we think that we're living in is actually an extremely elaborate virtual reality or simulation. So this is just an extremely elaborate virtual reality. This is because we're not our bodies. So if we're not actually our bodies, then everything that we're seeing is actually just ultimately not even real, which is kind of trippy in a way. And so we exist entirely outside of all the timelines, but we have to block out a huge aspect of knowing that we're outside of all these timelines in order to identify with our 3D reality. So we have to be constantly focused on this singular identity. And when you focus so exclusively on this singular reality, you're excluding the ultimate reality. It's like you're just staring really hard in one area, and then so you're not being able to focus on everything. And that's because that's what we're made to do. That's what we're here for. So, there's nothing wrong with that. timelines slightly shift moment to moment because we have an ultimate, possibility. We have infinite possibilities moment to moment. So when I go through a major timeline shift or just, a really big vibrational shift, I will notice an almost slowing of time. There'll be like a vertigo feeling and a very slow like warp of time. And I'll also notice a buzzing in my ear. And it feels kind of like waves are flowing through my body and causing it to be disoriented. And then there's this buzz going in my ear. And I felt like the strongest one that I've ever felt in my life was probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And at the time, I was actually engaged to a different man. And for some reason, like I didn't really have to do this, but for some reason, I told him something that totally changed his perception of me. Like his perception of me did a 180 in the moment that I said what I said. And right after I uttered it, I felt my timeline shift. I felt this serious buzzing in my ear, huge vertigo, and I couldn't make out anything for like a couple seconds. And I was like, what is going on? Like I was trying to like pick something out of my ear. And so ultimately, I felt that like my timeline changed dramatically from that event. And I do know, because I knew before it happened, I had already known that if I had stayed on that timeline, me and this man would have had a daughter together. Like we would have been the parents of a daughter. So I can say that because I knew it before the focus changed. So since the focus changed, I don't know what else would have happened on that timeline because my focus changed so much that I'm not consciously aware of what else happened on that timeline. But my point is that each timeline exists, but Spirit is working on with us no matter which timeline we currently are on. Some just may take us a little longer to remember love, and some may make us have more pain cycles, or some may give us less, and some may, have us remember quicker. So have you ever personally tried to do something and you physically just could not do it? Like you just physically couldn't, even though mentally you wanted to, and it wasn't something that was hard to do. An example is I have a friend who told me that she tried to enter a voodoo shop, but she couldn't physically even lift her arm up to do it, even though she willed herself to. Her body physically would not, go along with what her mind wanted her to do. This is an example of extreme higher guidance. And it's more of an extreme example. It doesn't really have to happen to everyone. Most of us just find little things like maybe we wake up late, or maybe our car breaks down. And, I'm not saying that this is always higher guidance when things like this happen, but sometimes it is. Like, we really don't know because we can't be consciously aware of the whole. My point is, maybe we were guided to wake up late because had we woke up on time, we would have been in a car accident and then been paralyzed and then been so depressed that we decided to commit suicide. Or maybe the ripple effect would have affected someone else entirely. So what I'm trying to really say here is that you're always in the right place at the right time. Like, you just have to accept that. Like, you are in the right place at the right time wherever you are. You have to be able to trust that. This does not mean that unfortunate events will not happen to you. We're just not actually equipped to understand the whole. So you have to trust, especially when you want to judge something as being bad or unfortunate. You really have to trust in those situations especially. So back to the Mandela. So there's an agreed upon vibrational shift or timeline for the major things. Your memory is altered or shifted because your focus is now on a new reality. So the major things that have shifted may cause your memory to also shift slightly. And as you shift to higher and higher frequencies, your memory of past events are only present for the loving things that happened in the past. Like, as you start to shift higher and higher in frequency, and you start to focus more and more on love, your memory of the past starts to reflect back to you that love more and more and more. So the little things like, the spellings, they're just little glitches of things that maybe you're noticing, or maybe you're not noticing. It really doesn't matter, ultimately, if you notice or don't notice them. So I have an example, the one with the timeline that I was on with another man where we had a daughter. I consciously agreed not to remember it anymore because I agreed, either unconsciously or, whatever, my higher self agreed to switch to the timeline that I'm on now. So the only reason why I remember that we were going to have a kid together is because my psychic ability had already told me that before the timeline shift. So this actually, this ascension and remembering only love, it actually reminds me of one of my very favorite quotes in the Bible. And this is actually Revelation 21, verse 4. And it says, "He will wipe every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things have passed away." This is actually occurring right now. Like, this is actually occurring right now for all of us. That's what the Mandela Effect is. So it's awesome. So an example of this from my life that I can give you is a story that I have when that my mother told me, like, her version. And okay, so when I was about 18, we moved from a smaller house into a larger house. And since we had just had this house built, I, painted everything and I did all this stuff in the house. And then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna, get this antique dresser and I'm gonna paint it. And, my mother's version is, it was a dresser and mirror set that went together. Like, it was a dresser that had the big, huge mirror that went over top of it with like a wooden ornate, outer ring to it. And so, according to her, I painted both of them. And then when my uncle was moving us in, he dropped and completely shattered the mirror. And I was really upset. I was distressed. I cried. I tried not to blame him, but I cried. And, according to her, I was just really upset because I had spent so much time on this antique and it was a set. And, one part of it was ruined. Well, I don't remember it having a mirror. Like, I don't recall it having a mirror whatsoever. And I have the dresser still. I mean, it's still at my mother's house, but I can't remember what a mirror looked like. I can't even remember what it would have looked like. That's how much I don't remember it having a mirror. So this is just saying, since my vibration released the attachment to this aspect of pain, it has passed away, meaning it's been completely removed from my mind. As long as we have to learn from pain, or we may just decide, our higher self may decide that we hold on to the memory so that we can teach others, because this is all has to happen to everyone. Like, we're all connected. Like, there's no way for one of us, to get to heaven without our brothers and sisters. So, I mean, we may keep it so that we can still learn from it, or we may keep it so that others can learn from it. But ultimately, it's going to be removed from our minds, which is awesome. So that's what Revelation 21:4 means to me. It's not even going to exist in our awareness at all. Like, the Mandela Effect will go to the point where a weapon doesn't even exist, because the mere thought of wanting to hurt our brother or our sister won't even show up in our mind at all. So what is a weapon? It won't even exist in our language anymore. So we're ascending to a reality where only love exists, because the former things, or the old order of things, has passed away. From my heart to yours, thank you.